Testing, testing. JB here. JB here. Hope everyone's doing outstanding. November 21st, 2024, 8:57 a.m. Talk really quick about the market, some names I'm looking at, go from there. But the big headlines the last couple of weeks has been the NVDA earnings, and we got them after close yesterday. A beat, a raise, monster report as always. But then the stock found some pressure, and uh, you know, uh, some are citing the lower than expected margins. I think their margins are like 71% or 70%. They used to be 75. I don't. I mean, any business that has 70% margins that's doing what they're doing is mighty impressive. So, I mean, that's a cash cow. Uh, I don't even know if it's that. It's probably just the big hype. I think it's actually a good reaction. The fact that it did that, and it didn't. It wasn't a big tank. It wasn't down to 125 and then reversed. So kind of held in the red slightly down, and then right now it went red to green at about 820 or so, 825, and it's up just a little bit, about $2. So I think that bodes well. I think that kind of sets the stage for the SPY to cross over that 600 handle finally, and maybe a blue sky move up to 610 or so. It's like the proverbial elephant or monkey off the back, right? I think that's what the market needed. Got that out of the way, and now we start heading towards the end of the year. So one more Fed meeting. More on that later. All right, so overall market, the SPY 585 and 590. So now we're over 590 in the pre-market here. Closed over it just slightly yesterday after a ramp. Want to see that 590 hold? That'd be support, and then we can start maybe working our way up to 600. Small caps actually outperformed yesterday, so the S&P was flat, pretty much flat as a pancake. Nasdaq was down slightly in the red, and the Dow was up, and small caps were the best performer. Well, was up, outperformed the S&P. So hopefully that trend continues. And then the U.S. dollar and the yields were pretty much flat yesterday. So two more kind of silver lining things. The not silver lining was the VIX, and the VIX was back over 17 for a while. Where is it right now? I didn't even pull up if it's down. Well, it's down to 1625. So, yeah, it's been trading between 18 and 15. Actually, it was down to 1370 at times a couple days ago. So, nothing crazy there. So that's overall market. So now some individual names I put on the watch list this morning, like Lemonade. It's hard to wow. I guess doesn't really describe the huge move it's had since the end of October into November. I mean, the stock was under $20 and it traded up to $48 yesterday. It actually nearly tested 50 this morning. At some point, this will have another pullback. Maybe it's today. I don't know. I'll probably look to close some more of my 49s. I mean, my November 29 calls out at the open. And then I might use like 44, 45 as a stop for the Decembers. I can't be too greedy, right? I mean, does it go to $60 into December? Does it go higher? Possibly could. But my calls closed up over 2,000%. I don't want to sit there and watch it evaporate down to 1,000%. Still great, but it just doesn't make sense for that. Holding out for that huge outcome. It's already had a huge move, so I might use that on weakness. This morning you had Piper Sandler maintaining their neutral rating, but then raising their price target $19 from $25 to $44. It's like a comedy act. It's like these analysts, they're neutral. You had a $25 price target, and then it almost rallied 100% from that $25 price target. And all you do is keep your same neutral stance despite the huge move and just raise your price target. It's the stuff that just makes me laugh. Yesterday was Morgan Stanley. Morgan Stanley used a 5-day time frame to raise their price target twice, and then finally upgrade the stock yesterday. But well, I think it's a misunderstood story. Huge short interest. You can see it's like folks are starting to realize, hey, maybe this is going to start to revisit. I wouldn't say where it got to in 2021 at 180, but maybe it gets to 80, 65, 70 before the year's out, maybe higher. And some of that could be the shorts unwinding. All right, so that's Lemonade. Not going to talk too much about that, but great week for that one. Another great week, right? Last week was a good one, and the week before with those November strikes. Unity. So, it's a name I've followed off and on for quite some time, and it's, I think it's a great story, but some will say it's not so. They've had execution issues, but the stock is down. I mean, it's not 48% anymore. It's probably 46%. I have to go look, but down year to date, I think the business is still great. I mean, the growth isn't what it was coming into this year, but it looks like maybe the turnaround's in progress. They had earnings, which I thought were great. Stock still sold off, and now it looks like it's reversing. So I don't know if it's some of a sympathy move here with AppLovin, and I don't like to use a company that's not as similar as you, but similar kind of sector to correlate gains. But I think there's an opportunity. I think you trades higher into the end of the year. I talked about yesterday on the rant. You always have these some of these names have been beaten up, rallying to the end of the year, and also you see tax loss selling too. So sometimes some of these moves get overdone, and then there's a bounce. So I think that's some of it in play, and I think the stock starts to recoup a lot of its loss. You take a look at some of the levels. It's 25, 23, 20, 25, and 27. So if you could start stair-stepping up, I think it heads possibly into 30 into 2025. I was actually looking at February strikes to play for that move. So don't be surprised if it has some strength today. It's gapping up a little bit. It was over 22 in the pre-market. If you can get back over that and hold that today, I might look for some February strikes as well, and then start to look to close some of my Januaries, which got close to a double at times. Square took a breather yesterday, took a pause. Still think this is on a trek over $100, regardless of whatever the market does. Under the radar kind of crypto play, and it seems like a lot of people don't even look at it as such. And once the frenzy, I think once Bitcoin hits over 100, there's gonna be 100K. There's gonna be more frenzy in some of these names. I think Square is one of those that really could start to take off. I should say really start to take off. The stock is up from $70 in middle of November, so take that with a grain of salt. But I thought it was undervalued to begin with, and I think there's huge opportunity there. If and when it breaks 95, I'll look for some more strikes to play some possible FOMO, maybe to 110, 115 in the coming weeks, because I could see that happening. Not much here to add on Joby. I'm also looking for some later dated strikes, but I kind of want to see 650 break, and then I think 750 comes quick. So I want to wait for that to happen. It almost looked like it was going to do it yesterday, got up to 640, and then just found some sellers, closed down 2%. At some point, again, this is going to break out. I think it's the end of the year. And then as the market starts pricing in some possible regulatory hurdles being crossed in 2025, I think it heads much higher in the coming weeks and months. So that's Joby. SE, slow. I wish it had just stayed at 117 and melted higher. Instead, it had to go almost get gap fill and test 100 before doing its bounce the last 3 sessions. Up to 114 yesterday. It was 115 here in the pre-market. I'm not going to add any more strikes here, but I need a couple more sessions. My calls will be back to life. I think this trades over 130 into January. So on that premise, I may look to get some strikes. Great story. Nice to see it finally reverse here. And also, Baidu reported earnings this morning, and they actually posted a nice beat, but there's concerns about its advertising business, which is its core, right? That's how it subsidizes all the other growth initiatives that it's doing. And the stock is kind of flat in the pre-market. I'll be watching Baidu. If it shows a bid, I might look for a possible some spec calls. That's Baidu. DELL disappointing yesterday. I wish it was 140 coming into earnings, NVDA earnings after the close yesterday, but that wasn't the case. Closed down about 1.5%, and then today it's gapping here in the pre-market. I think it trades over 140. Don't be surprised if I add more spec calls there. And then Palo Alto. So Palo Alto reported a great quarter. It's getting upgrades this morning. The board of directors also approved a 2-for-1 stock split, but it's trading lower. And you start reading and looking into some are citing declining bookings, which people always, some of these software names and security names, that bookings is always like that big buzzword that everybody uses. Especially, I used to Smart Sheets. I'm trying to think, Alteryx. There were some of these other names I used to follow or trade a lot that the stock would have a beat and raise, but then the stock would fall because of bookings, right? And maybe that's the case here with Palo Alto, but I've seen in the past with Palo Alto, it's had a green to red, yes, red to green move after the open. And not only that, you have the backdrop now of this 2-for-1 split, and stocks typically run up into splits. I wouldn't be surprised to see Palo Alto over $400 today. So don't be surprised if I add some spec calls, depending on the premiums. If the 400 strikes are over $1 or so, I'll pass. But if I can get them, 50 cents or so, or sometime in the day as the premium comes out, maybe I'll look to get those for a move over 400. And that's it, folks. Let's have another great day. I'll be back on audio later. Rock and roll.